Coming up, a double shutout in Minnesota, and the Panthers take care of business against Vegas. This is Locked On Game to Game, NHL.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NHL. Local experts join us to go over the biggest stories on the ice. I am your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Colorado asserted themselves over San Jose with a one-sided 6-0 win for the defending champions. Locked On Avalanche is in to go over that victory.
All right, the Colorado Avalanche needed a big win, and boy, did they get it. A 6-0 absolute thumping of the San Jose Sharks. Really should have happened. You know, the Avalanche are a much better team than the Sharks have, but they haven't been playing that well over the past handful of games. So you like seeing this, a complete dominant effort from start to finish, really from start to end of the second, because the third was kind of just a formality.
It was come out and see your favorite member of the Avalanche score with goals from Cale Makar, Nathan MacKinnon, and Mikko Rantanen, and a shutout from Georgiev. What more do Avalanche fans need from this team with a performance like this?
Not much. 4 points from Cale Makar, 4 points from Val Nichushkin. Now you get a day off, and a much better team in the Los Angeles Kings is up next.
The San Jose Sharks get steamrolled by the Colorado Avalanche. I'm JD Young of Locked On Sharks. And the Sharks fall 6-0 in a game that was over as soon as the puck was dropped. The Sharks had two shots on goal in the first period, ended up with 13 shots on goal total. At one point, until late in the second period, the Avalanche had more goals than the Sharks actually had shots on goal. Erik Karlsson got a 10-minute misconduct for throwing his helmet on the ice after a missed high stick that left him bloodied. This game was just a train wreck. Capo Kakinen was chased after 5 minutes. Easily one of the worst games of the year, but the Sharks one step closer to Connor Bedard. So we'll cover all this and more on our next episode of Locked On Sharks.
Something you don't see very often last night in Minnesota, as the game was completely scoreless through 3 periods, overtime, and had to be settled in the shootout. Locked On Flames and Locked On Wild go over that 1-0 final.
Jacob Markstrom just had his first shutout of the season against the Minnesota Wild with a 40-plus save night. Hello, everyone, and I'm Jess Belmaster from Locked On Flames, and what a finish that was. Tyler Toffoli comes up big in back-to-back games for the Flames. Jacob Markstrom comes up big for the Flames in back-to-back games. A shootout after an overtime goal was called back for being offside. And oh my goodness, what? You just can't kill this team. You just can't kill them. What an exciting night for the Flames, winning back-to-back games for the first time since December-ish. And I am just elated that, they've just won back-to-back games. They have some pep in their step. They can put some swagger back into it. And here we are. The 2022-23 Flames aren't dead yet.
Ending a great game with America's favorite thing, the shootout. Hey everybody, Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, recapping a 1-0 shootout loss for the Minnesota Wild to the Calgary Flames. Both goalies dialed in all night as Jacob Markstrom recorded 42 saves. Philip Gustafsson also with a shutout himself. OT, some chances on both sides, and then in the shootout, Freddie Gaudreau, the lone Wild goal, but Nazem Kadri and Tyler Toffoli scoring to give the Flames a desperately needed 2 points in this one. And for the Wild, a few opportunities along the way. If you connect on one of them, you don't end up losing in the shootout. For more on the Minnesota Wild, make sure you're following Locked On Wild wherever you listen to your podcasts.
The Panthers led from start to finish on Tuesday against Vegas. Locked On Panthers goes over an impressive run right now for Florida.
Second straight win in Game 3 of this 7-game homestand for the Cats, and second game in a row where the Florida Panthers never trailed. What is up, guys? It's Armando Velez from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, and the Florida Panthers defeat the Vegas Golden Knights by a final score of 2-1. And like I said, never trailed in this game. Got up the scoring early on against a Vegas team that is really good on the road. only held Jack Eichel to 1 shot on goal. That new line of Alexander Barkov, Etulis Storena, and Anthony Duclair consistently creating plays. Sergei Bobrovsky only giving up 5 goals in his last 4 games, only one of them being at 5-on-5. Just what a run that the Florida Panthers have been on. Even though in the first period of this game against the Vegas Golden Knights, many block shots and the possession numbers in favor of the Florida Panthers, they have shown their ability to clean it up in their own zone at 5-on-5, especially. No, they've gone to the box 4 times and gave up a power play goal, but at 5-on-5, this team was just flat out dominant and doing a lot of favors for their goaltender on the night. So to listen to my recap of this 2-1 win for the Florida Panthers over the Vegas Golden Knights, make sure to listen to my next episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Your team every day.
Coming up, the Hurricanes mount a comeback against Montreal. This is Locked On Game to Game, NHL. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by FanDuel. We are at the midway point of the NBA season. We're past it a little bit now, and it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. So just download FanDuel, their sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy for you to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to points scored to threes that are drained. Coming up tonight, we have an underdog at plus 385 in the Trailblazers. They take on the Celtics, who have been reeling as of late, so that could be a good play for you if you're interested in betting on something tonight. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a bigger chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Game to Game NHL. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you once again for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Carolina got behind early in Montreal. They chipped away, forced overtime, and finished things off in that shootout. Locked On Hurricanes is in with a full breakdown of the comeback.
Hey there, hockey fans. Jared Ellis here, host of Locked On Hurricanes. And tonight, the Carolina Hurricanes were up in Montreal taking on the Montreal Canadiens. And this is a game where the Hurricanes were really lucky to come away with the 2 points as they won 4-3 in a shootout. Through the first 40 minutes, the Hurricanes were definitely the second best team out there on the ice, but thankfully in the second and third periods they were able to do just enough to stay in it. And then in the third period, Jesper Fast ended up tying it up for the team and then forcing overtime, where neither team was able to get anything going. The Hurricanes did create some good chances there, but ultimately it went to shootout, and you couldn't script it any better as Jesperi Kotkaniemi in Montreal, when he was getting showered with booze, scored the game-winning goal for the Hurricanes. Now the Hurricanes heading into Thursday, they got to clean it up and be ready to go against the Flyers, but I trust full well that the Hurricanes will do that. But make sure you tune in to Locked On Hurricanes wherever you get your podcast to find out all about that and an in-depth recap of tonight's game against the Habs. And as always, let's go Canes.
A 3-2 win for the Islanders over the Sabres, but that final goal was a little bit up for debate. Locked On Islanders goes over the win and that controversial game-winning goal.
Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders here. Islanders down the Sabres 3-2 in a critical game in the fight for the wild card in the Eastern Conference. And some controversy in this game. Hudson Fasching of the Islanders scoring the game-winning goal. It goes in off of his shin. Originally ruled no goal on the ice, but the review by the War Room showed no distinct kicking motion. It's overturned and the goal counts. I think they made the correct call, as much as I'm sure Sabre fans will disagree. And more importantly, I think the Islanders, over the course of 60 minutes, were the better team in this game. After a slow first 10 minutes, the forecheck picked up, and the Islanders dictated the pace of play, and that's why they ended up as the better team for the game. For more, listen to and watch the Locked On Islanders podcast with me, Gil Martin, wherever you get your podcasts.
Tampa has been struggling as of late, but they turned things around against Philly yesterday. Locked On Flyers goes over some of the issues in their loss on the road.
Russ Cohen here for Locked On Flyers. Flyers drop this one 5-2. They get the first goal of the game, and Tampa gets the next 4. Tampa was on a 5-game losing streak, no more. The Flyers helped them out of that. Really bizarre game at the end. Tony DeAngelo gets a spearing against him. Just no call for that. I mean, it was dirty, and it was a bad play, bad look. He'll probably get a fine for that. They went with the 11-7 again. That was a disaster. They sat Sanheim and Farabee for a period. That was bad because then they have other players like Brendan Lemieux, who did get his first Flyers goal, just out of shape and not really able to handle the third period. Same with Tanner Lazinski. So kind of a disastrous game here. But that's it. Listen to the podcast.
That will do it for this edition of Locked On Game to Game NHL. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On NHL and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.